Hi guys, it's Liz here. In today's video, I wanted to talk specifically about awakening. So I wanted to look at what it is, what it looks like, maybe bust some myths. We'll see. If you're not new to my channel, then you know I'm trying to get more comfortable being on camera. So this might be a little ranty or just not super smooth. I do make other more scripted type of videos, so if that's kind of more your jazz, then I will certainly make more of those. Just let me know down in the comments if you prefer something that's a little more structured versus me rambling to a camera. Hey guys, it's Editing Liz here. So as I just said, I'm still getting used to being on camera, and as a result, what came out in this video was a rambling mess, and I missed a bunch of stuff that I meant to talk about. I didn't want to scrap the whole video, but I do want to clean it up a bit so that it makes sense. So I'll be popping up from time to time for clarity purposes. So to be awakened, how I sort of define it anyways, is to be aware. So to be aware of your personal bullshit and the bullshit that the world kind of puts on us. Okay, so by bullshit, I mean the things that are intended to keep us stuck in the 3D box. Generally speaking, from a Westerner point of view, that looks like going to school, getting a 9-to-5, getting married, typically the heteronormative husband-wife type deal, buying a house with a white picket fence, having kids, retirement, and then finally, sweet death. We're told which gender we are and what our name is from birth, and what our role is within that gender. We're told what's good and bad, what success looks like, and so on. We're taught by society not to question these things, and for those of us who do, we get shunned. This creates limiting beliefs and low vibe energies, and the system is designed that way to keep us down. Those in control of the system don't want us waking up and thinking for ourselves, out of fear of losing power and, let's face it, money. I could go on, but it would just be more ranting. So let's carry on. You see it, there's a clarity, if you will, to being able, you see it. It's just super clear, and some people call this having a 5D experience, where you see what the 3D, this world that we live in, you see how we're being controlled. And there are things that just don't make any more, things that used to make sense to us, or things that we just, so the things that we just sort of accepted before, suddenly we see how it doesn't make sense. And so we see this 3D world from a 5D perspective, I guess is how you might explain it. And so let's look at the 5D real quick. We'll come back to the 3D in a minute, but let's look at the 5D real quick. So this is the spiritual awakening part of it. And this is about coming into wholeness with yourself, and not seeing in good or bad and black and white. It's more neutral, and you approach things naturally with a sense of compassion. So let's look at the parable of the Chinese farmer. There's a story about a Chinese farmer who buys a horse. A short while later, the horse runs away. The farmer's neighbor says, "Oh, that's bad news." The farmer responds, "Good news, bad news, Who can say? 3 days later, the horse returns, and with it, a herd of wild horses. His neighbor, seeing his good fortune, congratulates him on the good news. The farmer responds, "Good news, bad news, who can say?" The farmer gifts one of his horses to his son. His son rides it only to be thrown from its back, badly breaking his leg. "That's bad news," says the neighbor. The farmer replies, "Good news, bad news, who can say?" Later that day, the emperor summons every able-bodied young man to fight in the war. The farmer's son is spared. "What good news?" says the neighbor. "Good news, bad news, who can say?" Like the farmer, those who are awake understand that all situations are neutral, and those that are stuck in the 3D will judge something as good or bad from a superficial point of view. So, and you're not, at least in my experience and from other, spiritual type people, or people who have had awakenings rather, that I've seen on like YouTube and other social media, that something that we all sort of have in common is that we don't feel the need to freak out when a crisis or chaos of some kind, or when things, or just mundane things don't go the way that we planned. It's more of a natural surrender, a natural acceptance of what is. And that doesn't mean that, we don't take action or what have you. Action absolutely needs to be taken. It's more a matter of we don't go into panic when things don't go the way we expected. So for an obvious example, what's going on with COVID right now, when this first kind of hit the fan and everyone started to, people on the 3D level panicked. They went into absolute panic. They might even still be in panic. I really don't pay attention to the news that much, to be perfectly honest. Just news is, they're spinning a tale. It's a whole thing. I won't get into the news, but whatever. So I don't pay attention to the news. There's a reason for it. And so I don't know if people are still, over purchasing toilet paper and canned goods and all of that. But in the very beginning, when COVID first hit places like the United States and Canada, where I live, people went into a panic and they started, over purchasing all of these things, toilet paper and, pantry things, canned goods and pasta and all of that. They just went into an absolute panic. And as someone who has been awake for a little while now, I didn't, in the sense of it was a natural sort of, we're gonna be okay. Okay, so what I meant to add to this is that those who are awake aren't stuck in fear and scarcity. We know there is enough to go around, and if there doesn't appear to be, we know how to create and be creative and resourceful. Back during the Great Depression, there were still people thriving. And I don't just mean those in control of the system. Look outside of the box for solutions. I didn't feel the need to go into a panic. I understood that this was and is a serious thing. People are sick, people are dying, there's economy things going on, it's a whole thing. But when you're awake, you don't feel the need to panic. It's okay, here's what we need to do. Here's what's happening, here's what we believe is happening, on a spiritual level. And even if you're not like, okay, well, here's what's happening, we're going through a spiritual awakening, those always are uncomfortable and tend to suck real bad. That aside, it's also, again, somewhat of an acceptance of what is. So this is what's happening. I'm not going to push against it. This is what it is. And if I go into a panic, I'm not helping anyone. So I'm going to plug a book that just recently came out, and it's by Kimberly Maska, and it's called Chaos, A Wake-Up Call for Lightworkers. I've read this book. I was part of the launch team. So there's a pre-order, and I got to read it probably a day or two before it came out mainstream. And the main message here, I mean, if you're a light worker, read this book, especially if you're a light worker like me who is maybe struggling a little to get their business off the ground, or just struggling with money mindset, especially in regards to your business. Read this book. Okay, but my main reason for bringing this up in this video is that as light workers, it is right now, right in this moment, it is our job, it is our duty, it's part of our purpose for being here on this 3D planet, is to help people who are on this 3D planet, on the 3D level, not only to help them come up to the 5D, but also to help them to see this as a healing, and to sort of come into a place of calm, sort of a neutral kind of mindset. Because here's the thing, when you go into a panic, you're not helping anyone. That doesn't help anyone to go into a panic. You're able to be of better service. You're able to help more. And even if you're right now in a place where you're like, I don't give a shit about being of service to someone else. Right now I'm in survival mode. I need to take care of me. This message still applies to you. You can't help yourself if you're in a panic. Going into panic and in stress, it affects your immune system. It affects it affects your body. It affects your immune system. It affects your mental health. It affects if you're a spiritual type of person and you're into the energy thing and all of that, it's going to affect your spiritual type of energy, the energy you're putting out. It affects all of that in a negative impact. So to bring it back to the awakening stuff, when you're awake, you don't go into panic. You see what is happening for what it is, and you're able to take action from a place of calm and neutral energy. On the spiritual side of things, on the emotional side of things, on the personal side of things, it also helps you to gauge your own reactions to things. So for me, for instance, if I had gone into panic initially, or even now, if I started to feel myself sort of going into fear, then I would know that, okay, so this is what I need to work on. That would help me to, okay, so this is what I need to work on. So I need to work on fear of, so some people are going into fear of not having enough money, right? So, okay, so this is letting me know I have some work around money I need to do. Or they're worried, for obvious reasons, about, with COVID, about their health. Okay, so that's what I need to work on. I need to work on my fears around health. So those are just a couple of examples for what's happening in the world at the time of making this video. As I was saying before about, not going into, people who are awake naturally don't go into a state of fear. They tend to stay at what's called a high vibe sort of thing. Now, one of the myths about being awake is that you're in this high vibe or bliss state all of the time. And that's just not true. I still, have my moments. All of us who are awake still have our moments where we're not our best. So you're not in bliss or high vibe all of the time. Maybe a lot of the time or even most of the time, but not all of the time. We have our moments. So that's all I have for you guys for today. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next time.